My name's Wayne Griffiths. I'm a traditional owner from this area and an elder in our community, and just like a storyteller and a person that holds knowledge of a lot of our cultural material here that's still available today for people to come and have a listen to and enjoy a lovely tour around our area. And if you look at some of our unique scarred trees here that were done by Michael Lawn, this is a project done in collaboration with Rotary and other service providers in our community. And if you look at some of these trees straight in front over here, you've got the Biggie Billa with these little footprints going through the land and cutting out, and we've got here, we've got like a campsite area, and that's inviting all people in from other areas to come here and have a look at the stuff that we had in our culture. And a few of the trees that we have planted around here, they were planted by all the Aboriginal families in our community. So you can just see this was a really big, significant project. There's a big launch here on Thursday. Over there you see the Bundar, kangaroo footprints. Over here you see the Biggie Billa again walking through our country. And there's some other trees we can get a bit of a shot when we're going to go up towards the top of Pensions Hill here soon and have a look around. This is where a lot of Aboriginal people camped many years ago, and they were put into this site by the non-Aboriginal people in our community, and when they left here they moved across to where the brickworks are across the road, and then further out along Wondabar Road, Wondabar meaning, you know, spirit, place of spirit, white spirit. And as you go out further Wondabar Road, there's the old fringe dwellers camp. Now Aboriginal people were still living in that camp right up to the late 70s. A fantastic area to go and visit. And there are still some remnants around the site of small fireplaces where they dammed up the water in the creek. So at one end of the creek, that's where they captured all their drinking water. Now at the other end was all their bathing water, where they sat and had a bath. And across the road from there is Blackjack Creek. Now on Blackjack Creek there are all these axe grinding grooves where not only did Aboriginal people live there in the 70s, there are Aboriginal people living there hundreds of years ago, because they're beautiful axe grinding grooves, and that's one of the best places where you'll find grub. And especially down at the little bottom of the small pine, you'll see where the grub gets in and he eats down at the bottom of the pine, and he goes about halfway up it. And you just get him out, strip the pine off, cut where the grub is, and just put it straight in your mouth and have a good chew. Really nice feed, Trish, and we'll have to try that one day. People talk about how you look at a tiger and a lion. It's a proud beast. A kangaroo is, you don't find it anywhere else in the world. He's so unique. And the red kangaroo, it's like people talk about great leaders of countries. Abraham Lincoln, they talk about, I won't mention John Howard, but they talk about, you know, great people that come before us, like the Fergusons, our Aboriginal people. You know, they all had special totems, and in our area here, there he is there, the Red Chief himself. You know, and non-Aboriginal people now are recognising the significant contribution that he has to our area historically, and how there are still Aboriginal people here today that can identify to that, and that's what makes us who we are today, because we have that fantastic historical background. And even if you look at the shield, we were able to identify just by drawings that we found that was the shield on Red Chief's burial tree. And that's incredibly unique in itself. And you can see the big kangaroo in the middle. That signifies, you know, who we are as a people. It gives us a sense of ownership of country and that connection to country. We belong here. You can't take that away from anyone. You can remove a stone from an area. You can remove a set of remains from an area. You can remove, an individual can move away. But what you can't take away is that connection to country. You can't take away that spiritual existence and what you believe in. And when you can change the way people think about that and change the minds of people, you can change the world. Look at this project here alone. The Rotarians of Gunnedah and the people of Gunnedah said, well, what a wonderful place, and we need to recognise the contribution that Aboriginal people have had to our community. So they worked in partnership to develop this project, and it's a wonderful place. And we just spoke to some visitors here that came up and had a look at it and said, wow, how good is this? And their comments, not my comments, you don't find this anywhere else in the world, only here. When white non-Aboriginal people forge their ways through a country here, that's when you start to get that relationship with non-Aboriginal people. And this is how smart Aboriginal people were. They learned to adapt to society. They knew something was changing, so they learned how to evolve and change the way that they did things. And that's why we're still here today, Trish. That's why we're unique, and non-Aboriginal people have been partners with us in that role, and they're changing the way they do things now. They're really thinking, well, wow, we've missed a great opportunity here to interact with Aboriginal people, but now's the time for us to change the way we do those things too. And that's the uniqueness about the relationship and the partnership we have with non-Aboriginal people. It must have been really smart, because we're still around and they're still here. No one's jumping on ships and going away back over to England tomorrow. So that's the uniqueness of that. It's beginning to become a sense of trust amongst Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. And when you can get that trust, you can do anything. As we're rolling along here, Trish, like this is a beautiful scarred tree. And you look, the Aboriginal people cut a big canoe out of this. Now, how they got up there is beyond me. You know, rumour has it, and it was rumour up until a few years ago, we were able to find a set of skeletal remains that confirmed that the Aboriginal men here were in excess of 7 feet tall in some places. And the set of remains that we found, that Aboriginal man was about 6'9". So you can see that it would have been not easy to get up to the top of that to cut this canoe out, but it would have taken a long period of time to do it. But there was always attention to the detail. It had to be very meticulous, because if you look at the size of this and how it rolls back in there, and just on the other side of the tree you can see where the stone axe was cut through, and that's rolled over and started to regrowth back in there. And you look at the size of the tree, so if you look at the canoe, that cut would be way back in here somewhere, so it's nice and deep way back in there. So just a magnificent specimen, magnificent example of what a canoe tree looks like. And this is one of very few in this area that have survived for many years. And with the property owners clearing their land, there would have been more, but this is so significant because it's really close to the river, and this whole area called Gulligal Lagoon area. So it's a fantastic example of how Aboriginal men use their craft and their skill to ensure that they got the best quality product out of it.
So what's this for?
This here is just an example cut. So they would have come and tested the tree, and you can see the stone axe cuts in there now still. So they would have cut a little bit out to see if, oh yeah, this is a good tree, so let's work on this fella. So it just wasn't something they walked along and said this might do and got halfway through it and said it's no good. So they come along and just did a little bit of a test. Yeah, perfect box tree, so let's cut our canoe out of this. If you look in here, Trish, you can see the absolute fine detail in the cuts, and you can still see remnants of the old stone axe in here. And I really don't like touching it a real lot, because the acid from the skin might erode and damage it over the years. But look at that. Look how that's sort of eroded away a little bit over the years. But you can see how far the cut went back, way into here. You put your hand in there, and you can feel it, Trish. Nothing will bite you. Quick, come around and have a look. Quick, feel. And you can feel the curve of the cut right there. You've got to get your hand right around, and you can feel that's where the cut would initially, the first contact would have been made with the stone axe.
Wow.
Fantastic, isn't it? Hey, it's deep. It's great, isn't it?
So how did they make the canoe once they cut this off? How would they actually make the canoe?
Well, what they would have done was roll up out all the bark, made sure it was perfect, and folded up and started to burn the whole process. So they burn the canoe, put it together, and they bind it together then with wax they would have got off the trees, melted it, and it would have sealed thoroughly. Great craftsmanship. Where did they get this technology from? Technology is just not in today's society, so it was adaptable to how people lived in the bush on those days. So it's fantastic. Like the knowledge that we have as Aboriginal people is transferred on from generation to generation. That's what makes this unique. It's here today, and we learn a lesson from the past. That's where all your lessons come from. You can talk about what we're going to do in 10 years' time, but unless we know why this is here, how did it get here, the reasons they made it, and the people that lived here, this would have been unique in the tribe. Well, that big mob there's got a canoe. So it's something really special. So every piece of equipment was treated with the utmost respect, because you didn't have an opportunity you can't duck off to Bunnings and buy a canoe. So, you see how important that is? Just something that totally out of the environment that they lived in was incredibly unique. And it would have great status to this family in the community as a tribal group. So obviously this area is very significant in terms of just the box trees. The trees alone were a source of tool making processes for them, so they used the tree to an extent. Some trees are not cut, you can see that clearly. Why didn't they cut them? Because it wasn't the right kind of material to use. We always say that we never walk front on into the future. We always walk backwards because we reach back and we take what's left behind with us. We never leave any part of our culture behind, and that's really important. At some stage, if you're talking to people, say just mention that to them. And when you're talking, especially with non-Aboriginal people, tell them to turn around and walk backwards with you, so they get to understand what our culture's about. So we always look back into the past, because with our past is our future, because that's where it comes from. And if you look at this immediate area here, like this whole area is made up of the Wallaby tribe, and they're all little sub-tribes of that, and they camped in different areas here. And our language was obviously the Gamilaroi Nation language. And if you look at Baburgit across the river, down towards the Malabar Lagoon, and way over here when you're looking up at Porcupine, at the bottom of Porcupine lookout is the Wallaby Trap, which is an incredibly significant site, documented about the great battle fought between the Griffiths and the Wallaby people. And when we visit that site, we can have a really good talk about that at some point. But if you look at Pensioners Hill, we're right at the top of it now, and it overlooks Gunnedah. So what a fantastic view in terms of having a place where you would have a look at. If we look over towards the Tamworth area, even, and you can't see it in the middle of the day, but there's called Yidiri, Nobbers Rock. And down a little bit further is Burrulba Rock. And at Burrulba Rock, that's what we call Skull Rock, and that's where you'll find green ochre. That's the deaf ochre. But in the Skull Rock, it's just like the Phantom comic. You'll be amazed when you film that and go and have a look at that. It's a fantastic site, a great place to visit, and you can spend all day there and just relish in what it looks like. And as we go over towards the back is obviously Trafalgar area, where there were a lot of Aboriginal people camped out that way. So this in itself was a place where a lot of people camped, and even in today's society, a lot of people now, and especially Aboriginal people, they're having their ashes spread over this portion of land. And when we have a look at one of the sites underneath here, all the plaques are underneath the plateau that identifies those people that have had their ashes spread, and it's open to that to the community today. And a lot of people are taking up that option because it's such a significant site, such a significant area. They want to come back to we evolved from the land owns us, and people go back to it.